We're musicians, so we don't make money. We're not going to make money off your image. Won't happen. Okay.
In the corner, like it is. And you're gonna
How's it going, guys? Good afternoon. My name's Rahul Sharma. I'm the band leader. This band called Funkadesi. There's 10 people in the band, and exactly 40% of us are percussionists. The rest of us are imposters, and we like to pretend that we play percussion. We're not really percussionists. But we're going to do two parts for this workshop, and we want it to be relaxed, informal, and give room for you guys to join us, ask questions, and all of that fun stuff. But the first part is going to be mainly led by the percussionists, and then at some point they're going to invite the imposters in to join and maybe give some demonstration on how we integrate some of the multicultural rhythms with the rest of the band. So without further ado, please welcome the percussionists of Funkadesi.
I'm Singh, and I come from a state in India called Punjab. Who's heard of Punjab? Who's heard of India? There we go. Northern India was divided into two countries, Pakistan and India. My state was separated. 3/4 of it became Pakistan. The rest of it stayed in Punjab. The culture there is all about harvest and the festivals and the agricultures that come from that area. It's all driven by community gathering, getting together and doing things about like celebrating and festivals and harvest and things like that. So in order to get everybody together, we use a big drum. Who's heard of this drum before? I'm not going to say the name yet. I just want to see. Anybody seen this drum or know what drum comes from Northern India? Okay, this drum is called...
I do, I know.
Not you. Dole. Say it. Dole. Dole. One more time. Dole. Dole. Okay. Dole has two sides. The bass side and the high end. This This one has a synthetic head. And those other drums that have sounds like this. Have you heard of timbales?
Yeah.
Snare drum. Sometimes we use different skins. In India, they have different styles. Some people play with goat skin on both sides, but they're tuned up differently. So we have a high end. We use two different sticks. This stick is flexible. Okay, so it gives me that control to be able to do a lot of intricate work. This one doesn't bend, but it's got a hook on it. All right, so what if I played my drum like that? What would happen? Any thoughts? If I played like this, and I played as loud as I would, yeah, shaking your head, it would rip the skin, so I actually play it with this curved side flat on the skin. Right? That creates a different tone than just using a regular drumstick, which, if I do that, it's a little bit, you know, sonically one level, but if I do that, it adds that little richness, right? So it's a call to action, a call to come together. When we have festivals, we bring these drums out and everybody comes out to celebrate. They do dances choreographed to rhythms played on this. They actually do processions. When we just led a procession here, when we're taking our communities from village to village to call to action, whether it's a funeral, a celebration, a birth, a marriage, something like that. So any of those things that come from this drum, again, what is it called? Dole. Dole. And from where? Punjab. Thank you. I'm going to pass it off to my Baba, Kwame.
Can you just tell one more thing? Because this was news to me. I've been in this band, I don't know, 12 years. The different sizes and the different, because when you start reading about this instrument, you find that there's dole, dolak, and dolki.
There's a family of drums. So what we'll see in many different cultures, including the Western culture, we have different sizes that do different things. They hold down different rhythms. Some of the bass drums, you see those, they hold down certain patterns so that the high ends can actually solo on top. There's middle tier drums that actually keep a different rhythm. So what our brother Lloyd was bringing up was the fact that this is kind of the father drum. It's the bass. It keeps everything on a specific, energy level, right?
And it's the biggest part of the tree, right?
It's the biggest part of the tree. We take that down a notch, and you have a drum that's about this size, and think about the diameter as being, I guess half the width of this on both sides. And it still also has two heads. One's a high end, one's a low end. You don't use sticks on it. It's called dolak. Say it. Dolak. Dolak. So we have dole, dolak. And then we have another one that takes it even smaller. They really, high end sounds very similar to what I have over here. I'll talk about this drum later, but just as a sound. Okay, that's very sonic. It's got a couple of different tones. So we have dol, dolak, and then into the smallest size, dolki. Say, dolki. So that's a family of drums that are barrel shaped. Then we get into when somebody got mad, they cut the barrel in half and ended with. There's different origin stories of the tabla. There's also different types of drums that are played with your hands that come from different regions in India. So this is northern India. We have different drums that are barrel shaped, played with your hands, that are not dolak or dolki, but maybe called mridangam. Say this one. Mridangam. Mridangam. That comes from an area where our sister Pavi comes from, and that accompanies a different style of dancing. So different regions in India have accompanying dance forms, whether they're folk related like this drum, or classical related like the mridangam accompanies different types of dances. And we have other drums all varying through there, so that could be electro on its own. So, Lloyd, do you have any other follow-ups for that?
No, I just, that was, I've been teaching it now to my classes, this
Play some.
Yeah, man. You guys want to hear him play that instrument?
Yeah.
So what we played when we came in was a pattern called Bhangra. I want you to say it. Bhangra. And this is the basic rhythm. which held down that kind of funky groove. And that's what the basic dance form follows. Then when we kick it up, we just do a double time. That's also bhangra, but it can change into gidda, which is a very kind of light dance using a lot of clapping in circles. Different rhythms also accompany different types of dancing, which I think is a good segue into Baba Kwame.
All right. How's everybody?
Yeah.
Good. Good. Now, the rhythm that I play to what we processed in on, I play something called dancer. And dancer comes from Guinea, West Africa. Well, first, I come from Ghana, West Africa, via the transatlantic slave trade. So I was born in America, but that's how my family got here. Okay, so the drum was taken away from Africans in North America. So just in the late 60s, early 70s, did we start to getting our culture back, starting to study this. And it has evolved to the point where, because Africans came over and they brought the culture with them, the drum with them, and began to teach the dance and the drum and the folklore. So this drum is called djembe. Say djembe? Djembe. It is one of the drums that is a part of what is called the djembe orchestra. And that comprises, there may be several djembes, but there's what we call, I guess you would call a mother drum, but it is called the doom. Sometimes called doom ba. We call it, say doom doom. That's the big drum. And it is a cylindrical drum, and would be the trunk, the base trunk of the tree. And they have, sometimes they're incredibly large, but generally somewhere around 20 inches in circumference, 24 inches in circumference, and then you have the songba, which is the next smaller drum. Say songba. Songba. Songba is the middle drum, right? And it's probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of between 20 and 16 inches in circumference. And again, diameter.
No, diameter is across.
Across, that's what I mean, diameter. Excuse me. And in length, I'll go back to the dundun. Dundun makes it about so high, and that, I guess, it's about 30 inches or so. My math, okay? So, graphically, it'd be about so tall off the floor. The sungbar would probably be this far off the floor. And then there's another drum called a kinkini, and it's the small drum. Okay? And the kinkini is high-pitched. And so together with the djembe, they are called the djembe orchestra. Okay, so this drum, just like the dole, is used for spiritual purposes. It's used for to enhance the labor experience, and it's also used for celebrations and I said spiritual work and social, right? So we use this to dance and create a festive situation. And generally, this happens after you work. Now, if you're in the field and you're planting, we'll find that a lot of the social dances, a lot of the choreography that you see in the African ballets are mimicking the work experience, right? So you have some steps where you'll see sisters reach into the bag, and they have a step, and then they drop some seeds into the ground, right? And you know what I'm saying? So the step is like, bam, you know, so this is, and the music is playing to accompany that. So you're kind of like grooving, right? So it's not so laborious. You're actually dancing while you're working, you know what I'm saying? So that is one of the ways it's used. Of course, just like when you have a party and you got the house lamp, not house, what do y'all listen to? Anyway, you got the music slamming, y'all getting down, right? You're drinking your you know, you're getting
Milk.
milk. And, you're smoking whatever you smoke, you know what I'm saying? And you're having a good social time, you know? So this is the same thing we use this music for. So, but then again, there is a spiritual piece. Now, this music is so profound that it has the ability to induce trance, right? And in that state, people are able to actually experience God energy. Can you believe that? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Literally, some people are possessed, you know, with the music. So the music is powerful, has the ability to bring people together. And so this is the interesting thing about what we do is we bring the music from our respective cultures and we figure out, or we discover that the music is very much the same. As you, I'm saying the same thing Maninderpal just said about how the music is used in his culture, the same thing with ours, okay? And so again, going back to the very beginning, when we were playing this rhythm, we find that a rhythm from my culture fits perfectly on top of the rhythm that he's playing from his culture. So music is a universal language, right? And everybody's culture produced the drum. Everybody's culture produced the drum. And what we'll find as we experiment with this multicultural integration of the music, we find that it all fits together very well. So in reality, we're very much more alike than we are different from each other. You know what I'm saying? And so our cultures tend to focus on the things that we have in common as opposed to blowing up the things that we don't, right? So we're really one. And so we play the music to stay on it. So I play a rhythm called dancer with this. And here's a pattern that is more than 1,400 years old. And we find it in a lot of the music that's in 4/4. You know what 4/4 is in y'all music. That's in 4/4, this rhythm is played. And I should say that this drum is capable of projecting miles. So this was the first telephone, right? And so this drum is capable of producing some incredible sounds. Now, I can't do all of them because I'm really a baby at this. You know what I'm saying? And I think this is an appropriate moment to acknowledge the original percussionist and co-founder of Funkadesi. His name is Meshach Silas.
Ashe Baba Meshach.
Ashe. And Meshach and I were close friends. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting because I met Rahul at an event that his psychology school had hired my band to play, right? And Meshach was playing drums with my group, and Valeroy was dancing with the group. So, at any rate, who knew that it would eventually get to be this way? I guess about 8 years ago now, right? Meshach passed. He had a history of seizures, and he had one and he didn't recover. So that was a great loss for us.
You're doing fine.
He's considerably younger than I, and used to say that he grew up listening to me because I've done a number of recording sessions on drum set, and didn't, and I'm, tour with people and stuff like that. So when he was,
Can I interject? Where you're talking to right in front of us here is the drummer for Ramsey Lewis, Roy Ayers, Stanley Turrentine has toured with Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Wow, Denver.
And yeah, the list goes on and on. So he's a little too humble to say that, but that's who you're dealing with right now. So that's why Meshack said, I grew up listening to you, because he was a role model for many Chicago drummers.
Okay.
And he's old.
So anyway, Meshack kind of like learn, you know, you have a favorite percussionist that you listen to all the time. And in reality, that percussionist, even though you never met him, is your teacher, right? Because you're learning so much from listening to the work that they've done. So Meshack was a master African percussionist. He was the musical director at one point of one of the, I guess, most prominent African dance ensembles and drum ensembles in the country. It's called Muntu Dance Theater, and they're in Chicago. He was a musical director for a number of years. And then eventually started his own company called Minneanka. And through Minneanka and his wife, Mama Nigeria, my daughters, learned the dance and folklore. And my youngest daughter is now a dance instructor. She's also a biologist, but she's also a dance instructor. And Mama Nigeria was Meshack's husband, and they were co-founders of the computer center. Mama Nigeria just passed. That's why I'm so emotional about this. But I bring my daughter to dance class, and he said, "Come on, play one, play." So I would play, and I started to develop articulation, but I never really spent enough time to really learn the music, because I never really played with a djembe ensemble that, studied choreography and played the music for the dance. So that's something I still have yet to learn. But when I first got a chance to sit in with this group, Meshack invited me to come and play, and then he had to go out the country, and I got a chance to travel with these guys and play this music. So when Meshack passed, I had the opportunity, at his memorial, we actually got together and put a piece together, which you'll probably hear, you will hear later, and it's morphed into something else, but I decided that I would, they invited me to hang with the group. My initial thought was I'd just play until they find somebody, and I found these people to be really genuine and decent human beings, and I've been here ever since.
We're still looking, though.
So anyway, this is the rhythm called dancing, right? And that I play to the rhythm of New York rhythm. Change or stop. And I just played a break and you saw me stop. And you play a break, start. So I want to see if y'all can catch this. This is the break. You see if you can say it, you can play it. So you can sing it first. Beep, 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 bop. Say it. Beep, 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 bop. Yeah. Beep, 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 bop. Good. Beep, 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 bop. Beautiful. All right. Okay, I just erased your clap your hands at the very end, okay? You ready? And where you clap your hands is where the rhythm would stop. That's where the dance would stop, okay? That's where the fun would start. Good. I'm done. I'm done.
Well, say it after me. Yo soy caribeño. What I just said is that I'm from the Caribbean, and that's how I approach drumming. My family in particular come from an island, say it after me, Borinquen. Have you heard of Borinquen? Probably not, because I'm calling it by its original name. But if I would have said Puerto Rico, have you heard of Puerto Rico? Yes. Okay. So, and we're going to go deeper and stuff, but my main instrument of these beautiful instruments back here that I'll talk about a little later, called the tumbadoras or congas. But for right now, since we're talking about what we want in on playing, I'll play this lovely instrument. You've probably seen it before. Say it after me. Chequere. Chequere. The chequere is a West African instrument, and again, here we go. Later on, I'll explain how Puerto Rico is playing West African instruments. You probably already know the history of the Caribbean with Christopher Columbus arriving in 1492, right? Arriving to the island, and of course there were people there already. And what were they called, do you know? Say it after me. My ancestors were called, say it after me, Taino. Taino. Right, so now you have Spanish and Taino living together. They did not get along very well. Later on, the arrival of the African, the beginning of the slave trade. So the majority of instruments that we play in the Caribbean, unfortunately, or fortunately, is from Africa. I say unfortunately because many of the other instruments were dashed away with the obliteration of the indigenous people. But what we do have is that African retention of that period. So this is called, say it after me, chequere. Chequere. And it's very simple. You know, you notice I'm not playing it like that, right? That would be very difficult because it looks silly. So what like most instruments that we play, it's all about that. You know, it's all about that, right? And to be loose. Whether you see me playing congas or even a campana, what we call the bell, or the chequere. So, you know, it's a lovely instrument. You can play simply by keeping quarter note beats, right? Or this like a guido. I don't know if you're familiar with the guido. Right? Same pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. What I love about this instrument is like that. You hear that? I love that. So it's not only a shaker, but it's a drum as well. So, 1, 2, 3,
When I say ashe, you say obrigado. Yeah? Ashe.
Obrigado.
Ashe.
Obrigado.
Ashe.
Obrigado.
You know what you're saying? No. I'm going to tell you. This drum represents, I'm losing my voice here, so. This drum, although it looks like a 18-inch floor tom from America, we're going to pretend it's a drum from Brazil. And it's going to represent a surdo. Say it after me, surdo.
Surdo.
Surdo is the bottom of the samba rhythm in Brazil. And in Brazil, when they're running the carnival, there's hundreds and hundreds of these surdos on the street. And when you're marching, in the carnival, you have one stick and one hand. The typical samba rhythm. No, you can do it on that. Go ahead. That's your typical samba rhythm. And we have the open tone, where I let it ring, and I dampen the head. We have the closed tone. In Brazil, a lot of the rhythm has the closed tone on the upbeat and the big loud rhythm, loud sound on the bottom. In Funkadesi, things up a bit. It's what's beautiful about this band and all of the different drums and the rhythms that we have. We're all humbled. We enjoy each other's culture. So I'm not playing in Funkadesi in this particular rhythm. I'm not playing the traditional Brazilian. Since I love the bhangra beat, I'm playing the bhangra beat with the Brazilian technique. I still have my close and my opens. Just to mix it up a little bit. Brazilian pattern, closed, open. We change it to an Indian rhythm. We add little grace notes and variations amongst that. That's how we blend things together in this band. We respect each other. We respect you.
So we're going to talk a little bit about one of the songs that is important to us. It comes from, again, that area in northern India. It's called Punjab. It's based on a folk song that our sister Pavitra sings for us. And the culture around this song, it started as a folk song about a woman who loses her nose ring, and she's being followed by a man, and so she's singing about that story. But we took that folk song, it's a very popular folk song, and we adapted it to our funk style, it's a reggae mix. So I'm going to give you a little taste of what that sounds like and how we put all this together. Our brother Rahul is going to join us on bass.
We're combining two fields. I think that you all may be able to relate to this. You've heard the phrase that it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. You've heard that? So we're playing dance music. It took me a while to realize that that's what kind of band this is. This is a dance band. So I was trying to play all that slick stuff. When I first got in there and this stuff wasn't happening, wasn't grooving. So I said, oh, this is a dance. So I started to really playing pocket. Y'all know what the pocket is, right? This, okay, so I'm not going to explain it. Everybody say, okay. So my job on this rhythm is to play the pocket and play it kind of straight. I'm playing quarter note focused on what I'm doing. Very, very sterile and straight, so to speak. And the spice that is given to this rhythm is given to us by the dole. So I'll play the straight piece so you can see what that feels like. And then he'll add the dole to it, and then you'll see clearly the distinction between what I'm playing and the swing feel that he's playing. And no matter what it is that you're doing, it's about feel. It's about how you make it feel, right? So in addition to the dole, what Carlos is playing is swinging too. So the difference, so go ahead and play what you're playing, Carlos. Play what you're playing. Okay, good, yeah.
You might recognize that. Anybody here studying congas, right? I'm playing basically tumbao, right? You're familiar with that, yes? But I'm kind of, you hear that little swing in there. And it's almost like a slight, almost related to the song. Are you familiar with that? Right. So it's that more modern tumbao kind of swing. So.
Yeah. So the straight is, you know, I'm going. I could be doing. You can feel the difference. It's very subtle, but it's really important to be able to make that distinction. So we have this type of interplay happening on a lot of the music that we're doing.
Yeah, and I think Bob Kwame's making a really important point. To me, my understanding is that how do you get some instruments that swing and other instruments that go straight? To me, I think that in this particular instance, it comes from reggae music, where somehow there's an amazingly deep pocket, but purposefully, it might be the hi-hat or it might be the bass guitar. One instrument is cutting across the swing and playing really straight, which just makes for a very interesting mix musically. The other thing I was going to say is watching, you know, this band's been together almost 18 years now, and watching primarily the percussionists play together. When we first got together as a band, it sounded nice, but I feel like it took us time to not just play music together, but to spend time around each other, to understand each other's cultures, to understand each other's context, to really get into almost like you know, anybody do digital music, like Pro Tools and that kind of thing, a little bit maybe? You know, it's almost like those little micro nudges in there, like we're pretty close, but as we spent more and more time together, to really understand that the swing of the Indian rhythm is slightly different than the swing of the African rhythm. And somehow as a band we need to create something authentic, but it might mean making a decision that, well, this is primarily an African rhythm, so we're going to support the African rhythm. Or it's primarily an Indian rhythm, we're going to support that. But I just wanted to make that point, that it's pretty amazing to watch these drummers sort of deep in the pocket as we spend, but we need to invest time and you know, attention to each other.
Yeah, and it's all, I mean, it is all about the listening part of it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this drum when we played in the beginning when we first started this song. This is called tabla. Say it, tabla. Tabla. Tabla comes from the same area in northern India, but it's a little different. It started out with, the dole was a lot more about folk rhythms, a lot similar to what Bob Kwame was talking about, bringing culture. bring the people together for festivals and celebration. This became accompaniment for vocalists and instrumentalists. So the tabla really was around keeping the solid pulse for somebody who's going to go and do really intricate microtones and vocal styles on either voice, or even using that style on an instrument like sitar or veena or other instruments from India. So the tabla, the rhythm that I played in this song, has the swing, and it goes like this. Played that same rhythm, just like Baba Kwame was talking about, not with the swing, and it would sound like this. And we do have that style in the tabla literature, if we're playing different types of patterns to really articulate some jarring statement. But that doesn't give me that swing. It's a very specific tool that I'm using to kind of articulate that staccato, and that's coming in the drum in this song. So I'm getting that pulse, but like we were talking about with the reggae feel, even in the Indian folk feel, I get the swing. It cuts through and adds a little layer of, dance feel to the music. So the tabla, I'll talk a little bit about that. The bass side has, it's made of goat skin, stretched across a metal hollow shell. Now this one specifically has bolts. Now I play in a rock band, so we go through skins pretty quickly, so I don't want to have an instrument where I have to rethread every time if something happens with it. So I have adapted this drum to use these, kind of quick release bolts, but the actual traditional style has leather binding that holds the skin in place. And beyond that, when we talk about the smaller one, you'll see these are pegs that actually are used when there's leather holding the skin to the drum, that are used for the coarse tuning. So we have coarse tuning, and then up here, we use a little mallet, a little drum hammer to control fine tuning. So coarse tuning and fine tuning. On this one, since I'm tuning with the bolts, this is more for almost aesthetics, so I can see, it looks kind of more like a real tabla. But also, if I didn't have the pegs, the drum would fall down, right? So there's some utility out of this too. So on the side that I have it leaning, it leans on the pegs, and I can play it as if I'm playing a traditional style of tabla. So the construction of the heads has something interesting. It has a little black patch on each of the heads. This one's on the bass is offset, so it's a little to one side. If we look at the one on the smaller one, it's dead center. All right, now if anybody's put tape across a drum head or seen something, it changes the acoustics, right? Has anybody tried that? Have you seen the resonance of a drum head? It might be too much, so you'll put something on it to dampen it. The effect here is similar, but it actually, what it does is it captures the sound waves on the surface of the drum. It collects them and then amplifies them, because this is made out of iron filing and paste, and it's baked on in concentric circles. So you start with the outer circle, bake it on, and then you build it up, concentrically in the middle. And so what that ends up doing, if you look at the surface, it's a little bit, convex, concave, I can't remember, but it's got the little bump, right? And that takes all the you know, the waves on the surface and makes that harmonic a little different. You'll hear the sound. Actually, I'll play it on the mic. If I didn't have that there, it would sound similar to a drum called the bongo, right? Which is also a two-headed, or a pair of drums, one lower, one higher. But now with that surface being metal, when I add closed sounds, I can get kind of a metallic, right? It's very different versus the ringing sound, which I'm doing the same movements. The versatility I can get off of this drum is just exponential compared to other drums because of the fact that its construction being so unique. And it developed over time. So some cases, earlier drums, we talked about a drum called mridangam in the south. A similar one, barrel-shaped in the north, called pakawaj, sometimes on the bass side didn't have this paste built on. So even today, you'll see some drums where they use flour and water mixture, you know, like you're baking bread, and they'll put it on before they play. They'll kind of bake it in there, and they'll get that sound. So as opposed to just an open tone that's kind of flat or even booming, it catches the sound waves and produces that tonal quality that's unique to the tabla. So that's a bit about the tabla. I think we want to...
This drum you tune to a note, correct? So this is tuned to D, and it's painstakingly tuned to match what we don't have on swelts, and this is a black case here, to match the sitar. The sitar is also tuned to D. So this is really one of the few drums we actually painstakingly make sure it's in tune with the concert.
Absolutely, and that's an important piece to consider. If I have a vocalist that I'm going to sing with and their key is C, I can't use this drum. Either I have to tune it, which would mean that this may get a little warped, or I'll have a separate high-end drum, the tabla, to accompany that scale for that singer. And if I'm playing with different songs here, I may end up having 2 or 3 different tabla, you know, high-end drums that I can swap in and out. So its design was meant to be an accompaniment instrument. So all of the tools and techniques that come around it are based on what is the main sonic, you know, tonality of the song, and how does this best accompany it? Maybe tuned to the 5th, right? So some cases it would sound too low if it was tuned to the tonic or the C. It may be tuned to another note that's complementary, and you'll see that a lot too. You'll see the tabla players sitting there and very like, yeah, no, and all that kind of, but yeah, so that's an important aspect to keep in mind. These drums are not just like the dole, which isn't tuned to a specific note, but they're actually tuned in order to accompany whatever song is being played or sung at that time.
Wow, I'm always learning. It's great to be part of this band. It's never ceases to amaze me, a lot of information. Well, like I said earlier, I'm from the Caribbean, right? Particularly the island of Puerto Rico, but we share something that's this particular drum, which is, you probably are very familiar with it. It's the most popular drum in the Caribbean, and they're called, say it after me, tumbadoras. 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 Or timba. Timba. Or tambor. Tambor. And so you can see there are 3 of them. And there's the high one, the middle, and the low. We call the high one, say it after me, quinto. Quinto. Conga. Conga. Tumba. Tumba. Right? And this came from a people we call, say it after me, Bantu. Who came from the region of what we call Zaire or the Congo. And that's interesting. What kept on coming up in this conversation, the grouping of 3s. There's another popular drum you may have seen before, but are you familiar with the bata? Okay, yeah, I'm sorry that I don't have it, but again, the batas, they come in 3s also. That's from another part of our culture in the Caribbean, the people from Nigeria, called the Yoruba, or Yoruba. There's another popular drum that I don't have for me, but I'm sure you're familiar with them. It's called, say that to me, bongo. Bongo. Or like Americans like to say, bongos. Right? And you know the bongos, there are 2 heads. There's the bigger one and the smaller head. What do we call the bigger one, you know? Say it after me, hembra. Hembra. Which means female. So the smaller head is called macho. Right, so that's the male. Again, back to West Africa where the deeper drum, the bigger drum is the female essence, is the mother. Same thing with the bata, same thing with the tumba. That's your female essence, this is your male essence. Poor quinto, nothing. Really good at that. So they sound like this, as you know, when you play them. Notice, by the way, that I'm not necessarily bouncing off the drum. I'm not playing, which is not that's how more customarily how you play the djembe. But the djembe, the conga, you play like in. Somebody said to me one time that playing the conga is real earthy as opposed to the djembe, which is more air, right? So, and what's really important to a conguero, a conga player, is this instrument right here. We call this, as you probably know, what do we call this? Clave, right? And you know, there are many claves, right? Basically, well, just for now, I'll say two. There's this, what do we call this clave, do you know? Son clave. Son clave, right? Why do we call it that? Do you know why? Anybody have an idea? There was a music that developed at the way eastern part of Cuba we call son, right? Or sones, it's a Greek word for song. Very simple music, bongos, clave, guitar. You know, well, this music made its way into the city of Havana. They added the piano, the horns, and the congas, and that became what we know today as what? Do we know? We call it salsa, right? Or then the mambo, guajira, guaracha, right? It became hot music. When that music made its way up to New York, it got even more fancier and hotter. So we call that today salsa. So, the clave simply is played, you know, at eighth notes, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Right? The second clave that's very important to us is called, say it after me, rumba. Right? A different kind of music developed in Havana and Matanza, which is like the African base of Cuba. So that's slightly different because you remove one little note, instead of landing on 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, we land one note over and it becomes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. That's referred to as the clave negra, or the much funkier clave. And a little faster in time. Commonly we use that for a rhythm we call, say after me, Wawanko, Bruma Colombia, Yambu. Right, so that's the music of Cuba. But what we're going to do right now, I'm going to switch gears and do a rhythm, say it after me. Plena. The plena is from my home, my parents' place, called from Puerto Rico. And we're going to do the plena, and we're going to do something interesting. We're going to do Puerto Rican rhythm, but we're going to add the Brazilian feel, the Indian feel, the African feel. And, right? Right? So I got that. So are we cool? By the way, the plena is usually done on these jingleless tambourines. Some people refer to them as tambore árabe. You hear what I just said? Tambore árabe. That means Arabic drums. This is another influence in Puerto Rico. Normally done on jingleless like that. Could you lift that up for me? Right. They come in 3 sizes in Puerto Rico. Thank you. Thank you so much. The frame drum. So, and the rhythm goes like this. Ready, folks? Ready? funny, you know. I keep on saying I'm from the Caribbean. That's my bloodline. But I'm really a New Yorker, right? I was born and raised in New York City. And I'm only throwing that in there because when I was young, I didn't like Latin music. It wasn't my thing. My parents were, that was my parents' music. You know, I was into Hendrix, Led Zeppelin. You know, I was seeing all these bands at the Fillmore. You may not have ever heard of them. I know you're a younger crowd. I actually went to a place called, there was a festival called Woodstock. Yes, I was there. Yes, I'm that old. And when I came back, what really blew up was this band called Santana. And you know, I was such a Hendrix freak and Led Zeppelin. And what was really cool that music, he introduced this drum to the music that I was enjoying. And that's when I went out and bought my first conga. That was 1970. So yes, that's how long I've been messing with this stuff. So it's a lot of fun, as you can probably tell. So I'm going to hand it over to my brother Rich. Yes.
Just play that 6/8 belt pattern for me. I gave it away. What was that last rhythm we just did? Was it square or was it round? Good. I gave it away. What's the meter? 6/8. So you hear the difference. Play that pattern now. So that 6/8 pattern has a clave to it. And the 6/8 African pattern, clave, relates to this clave pattern that he was talking about. So they're all combined, they're all from the same source. So it's like... So it's really a 3/2 clave that got transformed into what you were talking about. So that's the last little part of that Puerto Rican rhythm with the Indian and the Brazilian and all that other stuff mixed together is that clave mixed in. Yeah? Anybody recognize the scale on that tune? He's thinking. He thinks he knows. You familiar with the modes? Dorian, Mixolydian? Anybody have some music theory behind them? So this is the Phrygian scale. The Phrygian scale, there's many modes All the modes have different feels and different, you should go home and study this. But this was the Phrygian mode. If you play piano, it's from E to E, and it's got a very Middle Eastern exotic sound. You can make chords out of it: E minor, F major 7, D minor, and back to E minor. So it's a very Middle Eastern, ethnic sound. We just put it together with the tabla, which you're familiar with already, which was tuned to D, but he didn't have time to tune it down to E. But also the drum that Carlos is sitting on, which he can explain briefly.
Again, I'm sure you're familiar with this drum, right? It's called, what's it called? Cajon. This particular style is Peruvian. And again, when I'm dealing with younger kids, they kind of ask me, well, why are you playing a box when you have such beautiful drums? I kind of explain the migration of the African into the New World. And what the African can do that frightened the European with these drums is communicate. After a while, the European got wise to them and took these drums away. But again, what can't you take away? Boxes. Everything the European ever needed came in a what? Box, right? So, maybe one day some, Dr. Lucas sat down and went, realized, woo! Create rhythm. And a particular rhythm was born in Cuba. Say it after me. Rumba. Rumba. Which means what? It's the party. Right? So, so this is this is the history of the cajon. Right? Again, it's the suppression of the culture, but again, it will survive.
Did you say baladi though?
Oh, and the name of the rhythm that I played, I'm sorry to say it after me, ready? Baladi. Baladi. Right, it's a very popular rhythm that you'll find all across the Middle East, all the way North Africa into the Middle East.
And what drum is it played on usually?
And normally it's played on, say it after me, ready? Darbuka.
Darbuka.
Or, say it after me, Dumbek.
Dumbek.
Or, there's an Egyptian drum that it's also called, say it after me, tabla. And you've probably seen it. It's a fish skin drum, sometimes goat, but mainly fish skin. Beautiful sounding drum. Thank you.
Although this is a box, move this cup down of the way so they can see. Although it's a box, he gets different sounds out of it by placing his hands in different positions. He gets a bass sound in the middle of it, and he gets the higher sound by hitting the end.
Some of them have a much deeper sound. By the way, some people have said, oh, you're playing a Spanish drum because it's very popular now in flamenco. But actually, the original migration was in the 70s. It was given. Anybody hear of Paco de Lucia? Anybody heard of him? Just died last year. He's a flamenco artist. Well, this drum was given to him as a gift in the 70s in Peru. And of course, he brought it back to Spain, and a new music was born called rumba flamenco. And made very popular in the 80s by a band named the Gypsy Kings, right? It became very commercial.
Yeah, I think you'll find that a lot of all these percussion instruments have the same kind of thing. The middle of the drum has got the bass and the low part, and towards the edge of the drum is the higher part. And you get different sounds out of the same drum by varying where your hands are and what part of the drum you hit by hand. We were going to talk. Rahul
Just wanted to check in, because I know we have 15 minutes left. Want to check in with the professors and with all of you. How are we doing? Anything in particular? Maybe a couple more points and then some Q&A. What would you guys?
That sounds great.
Sounds great.
Riffing off what he just said, my drum teacher was a master frame drum player, and he taught me how to play the different parts of the drum because he had names to these. And this was called fire. This is water. This is earth. This is air. You teach me. I'm repeating this. Words: fire, water, earth, air.
We were going to talk about how reggae fits in with bongo in this next section.
Yep.
Just to have this lead.
You're such a well-behaved crowd.
Yeah, the classroom decorum is perfect. I haven't had to tell anybody to shut up yet. So to get to the reggae piece, I kind of want to go back just a little bit to part of what the name of the group is, funk, right? And of course, American music has evolved, and you know, at one point we had this grand divide between what they call pop music and what they call rhythm and blues. But back in the day, the rhythm and blues was called race music, and much of it was not. Matter of fact, none of it, for that matter, was allowed on white radio stations. And the desire of most black artists was to have the broadest possible market, have that available to us. And so one of the phenomena that grew out of that history is was a company called Motown. And Motown, of course, groomed and designed the artist development so that those artists would have access to the greatest possible market so they could actually cross over. And they actually did that. So some of you know about the Temptations and the Supremes. They actually became a very famous groups. And I don't know, has anybody seen the movie called The Five Heartbeats? Oh, anyway, okay. Well, Google it, and you know, maybe Netflix it. It's an interesting story about how black African American groups were exploited, and sometimes their original songs were covered by white artists because the record company didn't think a white audience would accept it that song if it wasn't done by a white artist. So, but anyway, the rhythms were quite different, and we everybody know about James Brown, right? So maybe I'll start there. The whole idea of funk is to have a 1-3 rock to it, or swing to it, right? That's the basic feel, right? So that is kind of like the cold sweat rhythm. But you can feel it go. That's kind of the feel, right? So this is dominant in the blues and in rhythm and blues. But now reggae, see, when you listen to early reggae groups, even Bob Marley early on, the Wailers, they did African American rhythm and blues covers. But they did something really different to it. They didn't do it like African Americans were doing it. So they established a field that actually had a 2/4 dominant rock to it, right? So they actually did it. When I first heard reggae, I said, why they play the music backwards? They play. That's how it felt to me, you know.
So listen to this, please.
All right.
Whatever.
One of the things you're doing is sound check, reggae.
I mean, can you see how I would think that it was backwards compared to rhythm and blues? So the brilliance of this situation, I'm going to turn it over to Rahul so that he can kind of explain how we got to where we are with the music that we're doing.
Okay. So, all right. particular about the reggae music as it came together with Indian music, because some people will listen to some of the things that we do. We'll go from singing doing a song with our lead singer Valerie, who is from Jamaica, and all of a sudden we'll do this reggae thing. There's many different ways you can orchestrate reggae music, but if you have a band set up, the lead singer or someone might yell out rhythm. So the term rhythm refers to the drums and bass dropping out, and just the keyboard on the offbeat doing the skank. So, and that's the beautiful thing about reggae music. Keep going, keep going. The beautiful thing about reggae music is it's almost like the audience, everybody in the room feels the rest of the beat. But we put it together with Indian folk music and use it as an opportunity for the female singer to come in. And we say, why not feature the Indian percussion right there? So all of a sudden we sort of flip from a reggae song into an Indian folk song in an instant. And as soon as I yell out dub, we're back to the reggae with just the drums and bass. Dub it! All right, everybody, mix. Sing it out. So that's the sort of the mix of the reggae music and the Indian music.
And there's one more element that was interesting for me as an Indian musician when I'm accompanying normal folk Indian songs. We have this beat that I play, bhajani, which we heard. Now, as I started listening to the reggae, I'm listening to something that the guitar and the keyboards are doing. It's called a skank. I'm hearing what my drum is doing, and I'm hearing what they're playing, and it's the same thing. The tone out of the tabla is accenting the same positions that the instrumentalists are playing with the skank on the reggae. So all of a sudden, that feel that was natural just fits so well with the reggae. It's like it was already, joined. So that was.
And I think our cameraman wants to make one or two more points. It's also our flute and saxophone player, Lloyd.
We're winding it up, are we not?
Yeah.
So what's your takeaway? Seriously. You walk out of here, what's your takeaway for today? You guys.
A lot of similarities within cultures when it comes to music.
A lot of similarities between cultures.
Anything else? Okay, yeah.
I think it's interesting that the idea of compromise, I think that you give some ideas and take some away from the cultures, which makes it work.
Yeah, I think between the two of you, you're getting there. Early on, Brother Kwame said, oh yeah, music is the universal language. And he's right. But then later on, Brother Rahul said, only it's a little more nuanced than that. Like we had to spend a lot of time together. So the takeaway is, and this is what I tell my students, I teach world music, is, look, John Cage, brilliant man, he broke music down to 5 components. He broke Western art music down to 5 components, 5 scientific components. That's all you need to know. You can keep track of every part of music that there is. There's the frequency, or what we call pitch, how high or how low. There's duration, how long or how short, or how we call rhythm. There's the overtone series, which we call timbre. There's, what am I missing here? My memory is going. Oh,
Time.
no, we did time. Pitch, frequency, duration, morphology, how music travels through sound, over time, how music evolves over time. And I think that was that silence. Yeah, no, silence is part of the duration. Anyway, the thing is, you can look that up. The thing that he's missing is this thing that you called pocket here today, but what I call groove. And that takes something else. It takes the sauce of society, a social sauce. You actually have to hang together. You have to hang with the culture. You have to immerse yourself in that culture before you can really be in the pocket, before you can really get that groove. So there's like a sixth thing that Cage left out, which is the social thing. He just took that on a
assumption, because he was talking about Western art music, and we were all studying Western art music or thinking about Western art music. But actually, when you start to travel the globe, it is the universal language, providing you spend enough time in that neighborhood to learn what their pocket is.
And riffing off of that point, I mean, somebody mentioned the word compromise. One thing that amazes me, and imagine a band full of 10 people, and we all come from our own genres, our own styles. We want to have our moment in the sun and all of that. Compromise is one way to put it. The way I put it is mutual accommodation. We have so many people in the band that, you know, we all have our egos, but we find a way to put that, situate that somewhere, and we roll up our sleeves, and we're able to say, you know what, the Puerto Rican rhythm here is the primary here, and the rest of us are just supports for that. And for me, the only way that comes out is if there's this fundamental premise that we respect each other and we respect where each other come from. If we really value where that, I don't know about Carlos and his rhythms and his culture, but if from the get-go I know what it's like to have my culture devalued or dismissed, I'm going to approach him and say, no, you know what? I imagine that just like I want Indian culture validated and understood and prized, I'm going to do the same thing with him. So that's kind of the equation for Funkadesi, this premise of we all sort of roll up our sleeves and we're able to have this trust and respect for one another, which allows us to do beautiful things, I believe.
And also make fun of each other's.
And make fun of each other. Any questions? Other observations, comments? Don't be shy.
So we were that convincing, huh?
We are.
Oh, you guys all want to play, right? You're like, we all play.
Yeah.
How many of you have been in the band since the inception, or has there been quite a bit of turnover of membership?
Yeah, how many of us are original members?
Carlos has been in the band so long that he's actually gone deaf.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but it's true. That's an occupational hazard. I didn't hear a word you said.
It's a good thing, Carlos, sometimes.
But Valroy, myself, Carlos, Maninder have been in the band since the beginning. It's an idea that I started, and then, you know, as I say, it became much bigger than what I thought was
Can I say
possible.
something? By the way, when I was invited, there was already some incredible drummers, and boy, was I intimidated. I remember that, and I came down and said, oh my God, this guy Mishak on drums was unbelievable. Then I had this guy. It's like, I didn't know how I was going to fit in, because there's so much great percussion with it. So again, there's that compromise, or there's that accommodating, because I just can't be the loudest, you know, thing in the room, so you just got to adopt. It was just, but it was that intimidation at first. I can't believe they let me in this band. I mean, there's so many talented people in this band. And so many
cute guy.
Yeah. he's the eye candy in the band.
Yeah, the old guy. But anyway, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, and then other folks, you know, we've had our original lead singer who moved out of town, had children, so, but everybody you see here has pretty much been with the band pretty much for the last 10 years, at least, so. Other questions?
Who plays the guitar?
I do. Is everybody coming to the show tonight?
Yes.
He was like, I don't know, he's not convinced yet. All right. But yeah, you'll hear the sitar a little bit later tonight. Other questions? Oh yeah. So why don't we close with one more piece? Is it all right if we play something else for you guys? Oh yeah.
Is there anybody who wants to play?
Does anybody wanna grab an instrument?
You can grab an axe and play.
Any tabla players?
And while you're deciding that, feel free to just come up, as long as you know it's a percussion class. So as long as you're respectful with the instrument and put it back where you found it. But come on, we need some men and women up on stage with us. Come on. John. What about getting our professors up here? What about getting our professors up here?
Come on.
I don't know.
Stand up, you gotta stand up.
Just call it.
Look, I'm gonna give some of you, percussion instruments that belong to Cobb.
Don't steal them.
Real sensitive about this. And if I see anybody try to leave it while I'm gonna walk this
spirit. So we're invoking our spirit to you. Hope you got them. Thank you. Exchanging our spirits. We'll say thank you to each
Thank you guys. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys again. We'll see you tonight.
We got to go eat dinner now, but we'll be around after the show. And we got CDs for sale if anybody's interested. So come talk to Valroy if you're interested in buying a CD.